Tonight, a rumor is moving faster than the silver price itself. JP Morgan leaked next week's silver price, and it's $50. If you've been in the metals world for more than 5 minutes, you already know why that number hits like a hammer. 50 isn't just a price, it's a scar. It's the old ceiling that defined an entire generation of traders, the level that turned legends into cautionary tales, and the number that people still whisper when they want to say, this whole thing can break. But here's the first twist. What people are calling a leak is not a secret memo sliding under a door. It's a public warning, repeated and amplified, tied to comments from Marko Kolanovic, a former JP Morgan strategist who has been outspoken about bubbles and mean reversion. In late January, he wrote that silver is almost guaranteed to drop roughly 50% from current levels within about a year. That one line became gasoline. Screenshots turned into headlines. Headlines turned into next week. And half down in a year mutated into $50 is imminent. So in this video, we're going to do something simple and rare. We're going to separate the signal from the noise. 3 questions. That's it. One more ground rule before we go deeper. When you see a screenshot of research, ask 2 things. Is it dated and is it sourced? Real banknotes have timestamps, distribution lines, and compliance language. Viral screenshots usually don't. If the claim can't be traced back to an original post, a published note, or a recorded interview, treat it like theater, not data. Markets punish people who trade theater. That doesn't mean the idea is wrong. It means the burden of proof is on the claim, not on your wallet. If you need a villain to explain price action, step back. Okay, 1. What was actually said and by who? 2. Why is the 50 story trending right now? 3. What are the 2 competing realities of silver in 2026? The paper price and the physical flow. And how can both be true at the same time? Let's start with the leak. If a bank leaks a price, that implies certainty. Like the number is written on a calendar. Markets don't work like that. Not even the biggest desks get to decree where a global commodity prints next Tuesday. What they can do is publish scenarios, targets, ranges, and risk cases. And what former strategists can do is throw a loud flare into the sky. Kolanovic's warning is basically a volatility thesis. The argument is that silver has moved so far, so fast, that a violent snapback is statistically normal. In commodities, parabolic moves invite their own undoing. Margins rise, leverage gets squeezed, late buyers panic, recycling responds, and the crowd learns the hardest lesson of all. The price can fall faster than it rose. That's the bearish story in one breath. Now the bullish camp hears the same sentence and says, fine, even if it drops, the real question is, can you actually get metal? And that's why this moment matters. Because the most confusing silver markets in history don't feel like steady bull runs. They feel like broken mirrors. One reflection in futures, another reflection in the real world, and a widening gap between the two. So why is 50 trending as if it's next week? Because the number is a psychological floor. When a market goes vertical, people don't think in percentages. They think in anchors. Traders anchor to the last famous level. Commentators anchor to the last famous crash. And retail audiences anchor to the number that makes the story easy to repeat. Silver to 50 is a simple sentence. It fits on a thumbnail. It fits in a tweet. And it fits the oldest fear in this entire space. You're going to get trapped at the top. There's also a mechanics reason. In the background of every commodity, mania is a structure built from leverage, futures contracts, options, funds that rebalance, systematic strategies that sell strength and buy weakness. When price explodes, those systems can force flows that have nothing to do with coins, bars, or industrial demand. They are just math, executing. And in early 2026, multiple market commentaries have pointed to index rebalancing flows in precious metals. When silver becomes too large in a basket, it gets trimmed. When it gets trimmed, it becomes sell pressure. Not because anyone decided silver is suddenly worthless, but because the rules of the index say the weight must come down. Now add one more ingredient, margin. When volatility spikes, exchanges can raise margin requirements. That is not a conspiracy, it's basic risk control. If you are holding a leveraged position and your required margin jumps overnight, you might have to sell immediately. Not because you changed your mind, but because you need cash. That's why the word kill switch shows up in retail circles. Many stackers believe margin hikes are used to smash the price and rescue short positions. The truth is more boring and more brutal. Margin hikes crush leverage, and leverage is where most of the forced selling lives. Even if nobody is targeting anything, the effect can look the same on a chart, a cliff. So here's the clean takeaway so far. The leak is a narrative shorthand. The real source is a high-profile bearish view. Silver could plausibly lose about half its value from extreme levels, because commodities often do that after manias. But the moment you hear next week, your skepticism should turn on. Because forecasts don't trade. Liquidity trades, positioning trades, and forced selling trades. So let's talk about the 2 numbers being argued right now. 50 is the crash case. Mid-60s is the correction case. the support zone where systematic selling might slow, where previous breakouts often get retested, where models start to say the market is no longer stretched. And 100 plus is the squeeze case, the scenario where industrial demand, inventory stress, and hoarding behavior overwhelm the paper market's ability to keep price contained. Those three numbers are not three different realities. They're three different time frames and three different mechanisms. The crash case is about sentiment and leverage. The correction case is about flows and rebalancing. The squeeze case is about availability and about who needs metal no matter what the screen says. Now we arrive at the Western investor's real dilemma. If you only watch the paper chart, silver looks like a mania that must mean revert. If you only watch physical anecdotes, silver looks like a shortage that must explode. So how do you hold both in your mind without losing your sanity? You do it by tracking the plumbing. Here are 5 plumbing questions that matter more than any headline. First, are delivery times widening at dealers, even when price drops? Second, are lease rates or borrowing costs rising, suggesting tightness in lending? Third, are premiums disconnecting from spot, meaning the street price is refusing to follow the screen? Fourth, are futures spreads behaving oddly, with near-month contracts stressed relative to later months? Fifth, are industrial buyers talking like procurement departments, not like speculators? Because a true physical squeeze has fingerprints. It doesn't just show up as bullish vibes. It shows up as friction, delays, and cost of carry. Now, I'm going to give you the most important framework of the whole video. The futures market sets the headline price. The physical market sets the pain. When the paper market breaks, it usually breaks through volatility, violent spikes, violent dumps, and massive whipsaws that punish anyone who confuses conviction with leverage. When the physical market breaks, it breaks through rationing, back orders, premiums, allocation, and the quiet sentence no one wants to hear from a supplier. We can't promise delivery on that timeline. So, what does this mean for the JP Morgan 50 story? It means the headline is useful, but not because it predicts next week. It's useful because it reveals what the biggest fear is right now, that this rally is a classic top, and that the crowd will be forced to learn the same lesson it always learns in commodities. The path upward is stairs, the path downward is an elevator. And it also reveals what the biggest disagreement is right now, whether the real story is price or whether the real story is metal. So let's land this plane with a sober map. Scenario 1, the crash. You get a cascade of forced selling. Volatility rises, margins rise, systematic funds sell, weak hands panic. The chart finds 50 because that's the number everyone remembers. Scenario 2, the correction. You get a controlled unwind. Silver falls into the mid-60s, maybe bounces, maybe chops, and the market digests the move while the narrative cools. Scenario 3, the squeeze. Paper sells, physical doesn't. The screen drops, but real-world prices hold up through premiums and delays. Industrial buyers keep buying. The metal flows east or into long-term contracts, and the gap between spot and street becomes the whole story. Here's my promise. I'm not asking you to pick a side today. I'm asking you to stop letting a single number hypnotize you. 50 is not prophecy. It's a possibility. And the next week will not be decided by a leak. It will be decided by flows, leverage, and whether the real-world buyers show up when the screen turns red. So here's the question I want you to answer in the comments, with one word: chart. If you think the paper market controls the outcome. Delivery, if you think the physical market controls the outcome. And if you want a follow-up video, I'll build a simple checklist you can use every week to track the plumbing without getting trapped by the headlines. Because in 2026, the loudest story is never the most important one. The most important story is the one happening quietly, behind the price.